The Legend of Zelda, an absolutely fantastic series of games. I haven't played all of them, but I've played a few, and they are super good, with particular highlights being Breath of the Wild and that Link's Awakening remake on the Nintendo Switch. But if you already saw the title of the video, then you know I'm not talking about the main games today. I'm talking about a spin-off game on the Wii. The one, the only, Link's Crossbow Training. Yay! Who am I kidding? You already knew that. I'm just gonna start the video now. This game came out back in 2007 for the Wii, and from what I can tell, this game has the same art style as The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, a Zelda game which came out the year before. And you're still playing as Link in this game, but the difference here is that you're wielding a bow instead of a sword, and you're shooting targets and enemies on screen. And that's just about the entire game. Okay, fine, that's not entirely it. The game has 9 levels in it, and each level has 3 different challenges in them, and they're all timed based too. The timer really isn't all that strict, so you don't have to worry about tossing your Wii remote at the wall. But you do have to worry about how many points you have, because each of the 9 levels tasks you with getting 20,000 points or more in order to progress onto the next set of levels. And 20,000 points might seem like quite a bit, but honestly, it's about as hard as playing through Super Mario Bros. 1 from beginning to end. Or perhaps slightly harder than that. Now onto the main challenges themselves. You could be tasked with blasting targets from a first or third person view where after a specific time, the screen will transition to another part of the world where you have more targets or enemies to shoot. But there's also a part of the game where from a third person perspective, you'll have the option to maneuver the world and be tasked with defeating all these enemies before time runs out along with the 20,000 points thing. Or you could just be stuck in a specific position and shoot enemies and targets in different directions. And the last 2 challenges ends with a boss fight. Cool. The boss for level 8 is against a knight, and the way you take him down is that you have to wait for him to attack, and after that you start shooting. And the boss battle for level 9 is a giant skeleton. How you take him down is by waiting for him to reveal his weak spot, which is his palms. And after you shoot both his palms, his next weak spot is his skull, and do this enough times and the skeleton is history. Both bosses are fairly decent. But it's the main game itself that people play this game for. Wait, do people still play this game? And as for the main gameplay itself, it's pretty good. Using the Wii's pointer controls for aiming works quite well and makes it accessible to everyone. And if you want something to do aside from the main game, then you could try practice mode, which is where you could try each of the game's 27 individual challenges separately. But there's also multiplayer mode, which is exactly what it sounds like. And that concludes Link's Crossbow Training on the Wii. It's pretty good with its easy and accessible gameplay, and not to mention its controls. And it is a really replayable game, even if there's not much more to do aside from practice and multiplayer mode though. I actually played this game with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck and not the Zapper accessory, which was made specifically for these kinds of games. Much like how the Wii Wheel was for racing games. And because I didn't use the Zapper, you could probably say that I wasn't getting the, and I quote, true crossbow training experience. And the way I found this was by looking through storage to see if I could find Mario Kart Wii, which is a game that I lost as a kid years ago. And as sad as it was that I wasn't able to find Mario Kart Wii, I found Link's Crossbow Training instead. And when I saw that GameStop game case with those very words on it, I knew that I was in for one hell of a time. But seriously though, I think I should be looking for Mario Kart Wii again. And the video's not over yet. For as fairly good as Link's Crossbow Training might be, there is definitely some room for improvements. So here are some things I think, if Nintendo ever decides to do a sequel for Link's Crossbow Training, here are some things that I think Nintendo should implement if they do. I really hope they do though. Number 1. Art style. Link's Crossbow Training has the same art style as The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Which, you know, isn't bad. I mean, Twilight Princess has a good art style, even though I haven't really played it. But, I think it looks pretty good. But now that we live in an era where The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild exists, using that art style is definitely a no-brainer move, let's be honest. And it would also go a long way to make the game feel a whole lot more modern, in my opinion. So, yeah. Using the same art style as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is definitely a pretty good idea. Number 2. more levels. Link's crossbow training only had 27 individual challenges in them. And while most of them were good, I think if Nintendo ever decided to do a Link's crossbow training 2, I think that number could be expanded upon greatly. Maybe levels around the 60 to 70 mark. Or maybe I'll mesh them together into a single player campaign. That would be pretty cool. But yeah. The original Link's crossbow training had a fair amount of levels, but I don't know. Like, if Nintendo ever re-released this game or made a sequel to it on the Switch and charged $60, I feel like there wouldn't be enough to justify that $60. So maybe expanding the number of levels would definitely help. And I forgot to mention more boss fights too. We need more boss fights. And the third, and also the last thing Link's Crossbow Training 2 would need is online play. For some reason, when Link's Crossbow Training came out, it didn't have online play. Why? The Wii was perfectly capable of having online play. And even though the online service on the Wii has been discontinued now, like, it still would have been a nice option to have even when the service was still going. So, yeah, just include online play. I mean, it's basically a necessity at this point. Just include online play. And that's all I ask. A different art style, one that has the same style as Breath of the Wild, more levels with more bosses, and online play. That will be worth the $60. And if Nintendo wants to, they could add more stuff too, but I don't know. But anyways, that's all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.